Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of ISACA Live. I'm Kristine O'Sullivan, a member of ISACA's communications team, and I have the privilege of working with ISACA's amazing volunteers, including our two guests today. As you know, March is Women's History Month, and International Women's Day is celebrated on March 8th of each year. This year's theme for International Women's Day is Inspire Inclusion, which is an important goal of the two speakers we have with us here today. Both Anna Murray and Sushila Nair have been long-term volunteers and visionaries for ISACA's SheLeadsTech program. The three pillars of ISACA's SheLeadsTech program are raising awareness, preparing to lead, and building global alliances. Through programming at the ISACA chapters, at ISACA events, and with strategic partners, SheLeadsTech empowers women to advance their professional skills and advocate for their career advancement. Welcome today. Anna, would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm delighted to be here. I'm Anna Murray. I am the founder and CEO of eMedia. We were an early stage web firm. I started in 1996, and now we're a general boutique consultancy. I know Sushila is from Capgemini, and you could think of us as a mini Capgemini. We do technology consulting, software development, cybersecurity, and management of infrastructure. And behind me, thanks for reminding me, Kristine, is a book that I wrote on how to manage a software project.
Excellent, thank you. Hello, Sushila. Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am Sushila Nair. I'm the North American Cyber Practice Lead for Capgemini. And I also volunteer as the Vice President of ISACA Greater Washington, D.C. chapter that is, in fact, the largest chapter in the world. So we're doing pretty well there. And I'm also on the ISACA Global Working Trends, Emerging Trends Working Group. So, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So I want to get into our questions, and if you are attending and have any questions, please drop them in the chat and we'll get to them if we have time. So my first question is for Anna. You've been involved with the SheLeadsTech program pretty much since its inception in 2017. How has the landscape for women in technology changed since then?
Well, of course, the pandemic really shook things up, in terms of flexibility. But I would say the big thing that I would note since 2017, being on the SheLeadsTech Leadership Council, is a sense of you can't take progress for granted. I think we've seen a lot in the world where we think, oh, that problem has been solved. Now we can move on to other problems. And I think the world has reminded us that we can't take progress for granted, right? I was recently at a memorial service for a woman who was a year ahead of Ruth Bader Ginsburg at Columbia Law School. And, there's a movie out on Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and, you couldn't get a job as a lawyer. And this is all during our lifetime. So the idea, it's shocking, right? That this is all during, let's say, the lifetime of someone who could easily be my mother or grandmother. So I would say that the not taking progress for granted is a big lesson since the founding of SheLeadsTech.
Great, thank you. And Sushila, what have you been seeing in the landscape, particularly since the pandemic? How have things changed?
Well, I think the pandemic really exacerbated the existing disparities, really impacting industries that were dominated by women the most. And in fact, there's some interesting statistics out there that during the pandemic and the recession, that women in tech industries were 2 times as likely as their male counterparts to be furloughed or laid off, and also reported taking larger responsibilities of childcare. So it really impacted that steady increase that we'd worked so hard to really build up around diversity in tech. But post-pandemic, we're really seeing those figures start to very slowly pick up again. And, there were some things that we learned from the pandemic that has provided value for women. So, for instance, flexible work arrangements, right? As we see an increase in women kind of rejoining that workforce, we're also seeing them report, that remote work has been an enormously positive initiative for them, either hybrid or, fully remote, so that they can actually maintain some of the things that they really enjoy doing around family life and work balance.
Yeah, that has been a massive benefit for many families. Sushila, you were recently named the winner of the 2024 ISACA Technology for Humanity Award. Congratulations. Your work has spanned many years and has impacted countless women and underrepresented people in tech. So what outcomes have you seen as a result of the programs that you have worked to establish?
I think that one of the things that I've really observed, and kind of the programs that really interest me the most, is where you see people attempting to enter the tech workforce, from different economic backgrounds, that are really challenged to build a profession in this world, in spite of us having such an enormous shortage, right? So, I think that when I look at the programs that I've worked with, a lot of it is around increasing awareness, because I think people are so willing to help if they actually understand the problem. I remember one company they worked for, less than a decade ago, and they were organizing cyber folks to go to RSA. And when I was putting up my hand going, oh yeah, I want to be there, they said, hey, we organized an apartment, and it was it's filled with men, and they're not going to be comfortable by you attending, and therefore this would not be, it would not be suitable if I went. And so, to my mind, a lot of the programs that we've run are about educating people that this is actually a real problem. And it's very difficult to work in a profession where you don't feel that you're receiving recognition. And so, women repeatedly report that when they go into cyber, they really need role models. They really want to look at their leadership and go, hey, yes, I see my career, in the future. And we see this enormous kind of dropout, if you like, of women in tech when they're 35, kind of in those middle years. So I think the programs that we've run really around educating people around programs like One in Tech have had enormous impact. And then working with One in Tech as well around the work of other nonprofits. So I love the work around City of Refuge, right? So City of Refuge in Atlanta does a lot of great work around training individuals that come from economically challenged areas, and they offer the training for free. And working with ISACA, we've kind of added all of those CET courses in there so they can study emerging technologies, right? And that's really expanding their capability to be more relevant in this job market. And all of these people are job changers, and actually, very bravely, had to take off time off work, even though they're economically challenged, to kind of do this program. So I think we're doing a really good job through these programs and sponsorships and scholarships, of course, which I've done as well. I think that, again, opening doors to people that be challenged financially to kind of get the right education. And so I think that these programs, education, right, actually encouraging industry to lean in, right? So they're actually helping solve the problem around a talent pipeline. And I think where we need to go next with these programs is to be able to also offer more job opportunities for people that come out of these very wonderful things that we're doing, right? And I think that's where industry, again, really needs to lean in. This problem will never be solved on its own unless we work together to be able to create this job pipeline. And that means being welcoming to people that don't have 15 years of experience, right? Like, everybody's like, hey, I need 15 years of experience, and then I'm going to hire these people. So I think the SheLeadsTech programs that I've worked with have been enormously successful. And what I'd like to see next, more programs as well, where we're leaning into organizations to create positions where they can do job shadowing and greater development of practical experience, which really allows them to be successful in this job market. And I really like to appeal to more organizations. And Capgemini worked actually with City Refuge to actually work with clients to give them that opportunity. I'd love to see more of that out there to really create those opportunities.
Yeah, those are some amazing points. Thank you. And I want to turn it over to Anna, which is along the same vein. How do we better resource women so they can pursue tech as a career and help them grow once they are in tech?
Well, for sure, one thing, as Sushila mentioned, is the role model aspect. I actually, when I hit a certain point in my career, I was astounded that young women were coming up to me and saw me as a role model, right? Because, you're just living your little life and you're going along doing your little thing, and all of a sudden, people perceive you as a role model. And I think it's important for all women who are mid-career, or those of us who have reached that sort of senior statesperson category in our careers, to do things like this, to put yourself forward, to make sure your face is on things, because unbeknownst to you, it is very important for younger women to see. And there are all of those soft elements around being a role model to people. I was watching as Sushila was speaking, and young women, they ask themselves, how do I use my hands, or how do I look, or what should I wear? I mean, all of these things that sort of get you in the door of just feeling comfortable in your own skin, and are super important. Both Sushila and I are technology consultants, and I think consulting is a great place where companies can experience personalities and genders and races and all kinds of diversity that they might not have experienced before. I've been, interim CIO of companies that have never had a woman CIO before. So it's kind of it's an interesting entrance point, right? And then oh well, that worked out fine. So I think it has to do with women being mentors. It has to do with providing opportunities for companies, and as I say, hiring a seasoned consultant in your company is one way to do that. And then finally, I think it's super important for women to continue to recognize the path to economic independence. Technology careers have always been a really fertile path to economic independence. And it's economic independence, whether you're talking about the developing world or the developed world, that gives people the ability to make decisions and to become influential, because they don't have to worry about needing a net or having somebody else provide them a net. I saw in the chat, how important is it for women to have a seat at the AI table? And those of us who study big data and algorithms and machine learning, you take a look just at hiring algorithms. I mean, we all bring our biases to the table, and we need women and diversity in the development of all platforms, AI being the particularly most influential one, but in all platforms, to make sure that a platform or a new technology doesn't just represent the biases of the people who are doing it, right?
Thank you. Yeah. Sushila, do you have anything to add on the AI discussion and women needing to be helping lead the charge?
Yes, we need to really all go out and study AI, guys. I mean, this is the most revolutionary subject that we have on hand, and we need to participate in the development. I love Anna's example, well-known example of an AI system that was developed to be able to shorten recruiting, right? So the AI was doing all the interviewing, and it wasn't hiring women, because essentially it had learned, that was what was done, was women were not hired for particular tech jobs. So, the outcome, if we've only got one population testing the AI, involved in the development of the AI, we're not going to have ethical AI that will actually make unbiased decisions. So it's so important that we're all increasing our knowledge, and that also that women are asked, and other diverse populations are asked, to take a seat at that AI development table.
Well, discussing AI is a great segue into, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sheila brings up testing. You know, when you think of, if you've run a testing team or been had exposure to a testing team, which many of us in tech have, I'm always astounded at the art of testing and how thorough and detailed and kind of the human level of brainstorming. What do we need to test? What, you know, thousands of test cases. And when you think of how a diverse thinking pool would influence just how you test something, I mean, when I have a diverse thinking pool, you know, it might just be someone. I have a member of my team who's left-handed. I mean, imagine, you know, and we're doing a mobile app, and this fellow, you know, is talking about, well, we could, you know, launch a keyboard that does, you know, that is better suited for left-handers. And you think, like, I wouldn't have thought of that. My mother's left-handed, right? So that is a small example that's maybe less charged than, you know, eliminating a whole population. If you just think of, like, well, do I have any left-handed testers on my team? You start to think in a way that underscores the importance of hearing lots of different voices in the development of technology products.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't think to include, you know, someone left-handed, and yeah, that really opens the door for all the people who are left out of the conversation. And so I wanted to leave on a prediction. I'm interested in knowing, we'll start with Sushila, what are your predictions for the next 10 years for the landscape of women in technology?
Yeah, you know, I think that we're, and organizations like Women in Tech, right, is really doing a good job at kind of educating people about systemic barriers. And I see that, you know, things like flexible work arrangements really kind of rising to the fore, and also a growth of mentorship, which I think is so important to being able to create career paths and encourage diverse populations into technology. And such a great job as well at increasing visibility of female role models. I know we have conferences where we really make a point of having all female speakers, for instance, or other diverse populations that we're going to encourage, right? And so I think that over these 10 years, we're going to make progress. That's a good news. I'm fully confident that we will make progress. I don't believe in a decade we're going to have, you know, pay parity, or that we're suddenly going to adjust the fact that we've, you know, got something like 5% of women in leadership in tech positions, right? It's going to take a little longer than a decade. But the positive thing is that we are moving in the right direction, that we're educating people, that we're learning about the problem, and that we're understanding that it is in all of our interests. I mean, you just have to look at the statistics that say organizations that have diverse boards are far more successful than those that aren't. So we know that we're solving problems, getting better outcomes if we go this path. And that's a huge piece of progress that 10 years ago, as Anna points out, we weren't even aware of, right? And now we understand, we go, hey, this kind of mixture actually has better outcomes for organizations. They're going to be more successful. So understanding the problem, we're going to educate, and we're going to make progress. But I don't think in a decade will be quite enough for us to get to parity. But good news is we're moving in the right direction. Excellent.
Anna, how about you?
Well, I think about two things. I think about, one is, you know, Sushila and I stand on the shoulders of the women who came before us. And the women who come after us will stand on our shoulders, right? And I'm super impressed by the women who are younger than we are. They are, they see workforce flexibility. They want flexibility in their own lives. They may have fewer preconceived notions than we do. So So the idea of being very proud, and I'm so proud to be with a woman like Sushila, where you say, okay, here's some shoulders, right? Gals that you can stand on. Like, that's terrific. And that gives women a boost. So to Sushila's point, there will definitely be progress in the next 10 years. There were in the 10 years before. And if we keep our radar up to say, like, progress is not inevitable, progress is something that needs continued work, that's super important. The other thing I would say in the next 10 years that I think is going to be particularly important in terms of gender is ageism, right? Because these two things are going to intersect as women who maybe weren't in careers 2 decades before are entering that senior statesperson category. And we are very comfortable with senior statesmen, and we respect them and give them very prominent roles on boards and so forth. And now we're going to have more and more senior states women. So that's a question mark. That's a challenge for the next 10 years. How do we absorb those women? Because those are the most important shoulders that younger women will stand on. So that's not a prediction. That's kind of like, we're going to watch that. But my prediction is it will emerge as a topic that we're talking about more.
It's really interesting. Thank you both. This was a really great conversation. Anyone who's tuning in, I encourage you to visit the ISACA website to learn more about SheLeadsTech, and you can join the SheLeadsTech community on Engage, which is ISACA's platform that connects professionals according to their interests. The SheLeadsTech community on Engage has a calendar of upcoming SheLeadsTech programming and events. There are conversations you can join and resources to access. So thank you for being here today, and happy International Women's Day on March 8th.